The other day, I was using this program called Canva to make a thumbnail from one of my recently uploaded YouTube videos, and then I got curious as to who actually owns this software. I mean, is it Microsoft or is it Google? And you can imagine my surprise when I learned that it was actually just 3 normal Aussie millennials. So, let me tell you the story. Holy cow, it is inspiring. It just shows the real power of persistence with a can-do attitude. So this is the story of 3 university friends. Now they are Mel Perkins, Cliff Obrecht, and Cameron Adams. And to make ends meet whilst they're in university, Mel took on the job of being a Photoshop tutor, but she found it to be very much overly complicated in order just to do a simple design. And this is especially the case for, say, something like a high school yearbook, for example, where you don't need to worry about color grading or layers or any of the really fancy tools that a professional graphic design firm may need. And it was very much this issue that Mel was having to deal with on a regular basis that struck her with her first idea, which she then took to her boyfriend at the time, Cliff Obrecht. And this idea was that what if we could make a program that allows for high schools to easily edit and design yearbooks? And furthermore to this, what if we were to also arrange the printing of these books? And so they started up Fusion Yearbooks, and they made some software and they got selling. And bear in mind that they're both doing this when they're both only 19 years old. Anyway, fast forward 5 years. And Fusion Books is now one of the biggest yearbook companies in the country. But instead of stopping here, they then decided to start up a newer, bigger and better business. Something that would sort of more just focus on graphic design itself as opposed to just a small element of graphic design. But before we get into that, can I ask a massive favour? Just give me a quick like and subscribe. And for doing so, I'll reward you by giving you a hologram of a dog. I mean, how cool is that, right? And so, anyway, getting into the new business. Mel and Cliff, they had the graphic design and the business and sales skills, but unfortunately they were lacking in a computer programmer. So Obrecht and Perkins went hunting for a third party, and this is when they came across a man by the name of Cameron Adams, and he was a Tasmanian software engineer. And so then the 3 of them linked up together, and they started up Canva on January 1st, 2013. And so now we get to the point of actually running the business and trying to get it off the ground. And just as anyone who has started a business, whether it be successful or unsuccessful, knows, it is very hard work, and times were incredibly rough at the start. So they pitched a business idea to several investors, and they were rejected hundreds, as in literally hundreds, of times. And because of the low income and also because of the operating costs, they were pretty much all broke. To help cut down on the costs, they had to sleep in the living rooms of family members' houses as they grinded every day on their business, having no idea whether this is going to be a success or not. And for any of you who are aware of Canva today, they obviously did eventually get their big break. But this big break or this big capital investment did not happen as a sudden one great day. It was actually a very slow process. And so this breakthrough came when they happened to run into a San Francisco-based investor in Perth when he was there for a conference, and his name was Bill Tai. And Bill was semi-impressed with the Canva business idea, but he was impressed enough to actually introduce Mel and Cliff and Cameron to the rest of his tech investment network. Bill Tai did agree to be an advisor or supporter for Canva as they're trying to get off the ground, and is very proactive in helping them launch the business. Anyway, this network ended up paying off because they were introduced to a man by the name of Lars Rasmussen, and he was basically the brains behind Google Maps. But as supportive as Lars was of this Canva project, he's only willing to be an advisor for it if they brought forward a new software engineer to accompany Adams, because there's just far too much tech work involved to put on one person. And so as the following year went by, the Canva team proposed numerous software engineers to Lars, and he just constantly rejected them, which just really frustrated the Canva team. They just wanted to get things moving forward, and they just kept on getting rejected for every proposed engineer that they put forward to Lars. Anyway, eventually they came across another programmer, software engineer by the name of Dave Hearnden, and he also had a background at Google, and his background was acceptable to Lars. And so now their executive team was finally complete, and Lars could actually fulfill his role of being an advisor and help them get fundraising. With their initial wave of fundraising, they raised $1.5 million. And then the Australian government got wind of this, and they thought, well, hey, there might be a bit of potential in this whole Canva project. And so then they threw in $1.5 million as well. And so they finally had their seed money and they could properly launch. But then something unexpected happened. They made an easy profit, right from the get-go. And I know this would seem like a normal thing for a normal business, but in tech, this is incredibly rare. This is a unicorn event. As most successful tech companies had spent years upon years making losses until they hit an inflection point, and then they turned around to become multi-billion-dollar companies. But not Canva, they were basically making profits from day one. And with this great start and with this great positive momentum, they decided to do a new round of fundraising, which raised $85 million in 2019.
Wow!
And with the amount of shares that they sold as compared to the overall company combined, this put Canva at a value of $3.2 billion. Even if the company had been worth $3.2 billion, they still only had that $85 million to play with. But with this $85 million in cash, they were able to rapidly expand the Canva business. And they now have a large office in Sydney, in Manila, and also in Beijing. In all of these offices, there are gyms, there's coffee stations, there's bars, there's free lunches, there's roof lounges, and best of all, kids and dogs are welcome into the office. If it were up to me, there'd be dogs allowed in every office, but unfortunately, I'm not in charge of the world. Now, that brings us to today, being in 2023. The original three founders, being Mel, Cliff, and Cameron, all still hold 18% of the company each. And that makes them all individually multi-billionaires according to today's values. All three of the founding members are true believers in this product, as now that they're all clearly ridiculously rich, they all chose to stay with the company. So we have Cliff Obrecht, who is now working as a Chief Operating Officer. You got Mel Perkins, who is now working as a Chief Executive Officer. And you have Cameron Adams, who is working as a Chief Product Officer. And the product has been used for 2 billion designs across 190 countries. And although Canva right now is pretty much the best browser-based software that you can use to make simple designs, they actually have ambitions to take on both Adobe and Microsoft to launch more complicated programs for more advanced graphic design. But here is the thing I like most about this story. Despite the overwhelming success and what they've achieved, the three of them still remain to be very humble and normal people. In 2019, Cliff proposed to his then girlfriend, now wife, Mel, and he used a $30 engagement ring. So just think about that, a $30 engagement ring when both of them are individually multi-billionaires. And when looking further into this story, it turns out that both Cliff and Mel are both very anti-materialism. Anyway, they later got married on Rottnest Island, which is full of those quokka animals. And other things which just reflect very well in their character is that in November 2021, they signed on to the Giving Pledge, which is basically a pledge that they'll donate half their fortunes to philanthropic efforts. And so now you're up to date on the origin story of Canva. And for an Aussie that just loves the tech industry, it's so cool and it's so refreshing just to see a few Australians actually succeed in this field.